Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. In our today's session of JForex Indicators Explained, we are going to look at a one interesting indicator named as currency slope strength. This is a indicator which compares the relative strength of the one currency with multiple currencies to give us a idea, give us a data, you can say data more than the idea of how things are faring for that particular currency in respect of its movement in comparison to the other major currencies. So using these data points we can then make a informed trading choice where to go for the trade and in which particular currency and at what particular time. So let us now head to the JForex 4, the newly released trading platform from the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the chart of the Euro USD with the each candle period defined at hourly. Let me add this indicator CSA, CSS, currency slope strength. Here it comes. It's taking some time to load. All right, we now got it. Now, if you look at this charting of the CSS, you will see these multiple lines, and each line is representing one individual currency. Let me tell you how many currencies are there in this graph. Each currency is being represented by these individual lines, and it is being drawn by comparing a single currency's moves against all the other currencies in these conclusion in these indicator. So if a particular currency is trending bearish, then you will see its line sloping downward, and if any particular currency is trending up, then the line representing that currency is drawn with a upward slope. And once the trend starts to wane, suppose for example if the prior trend was bullish, and once the bullish trend starts to wane, the slope of this drawn line on the upside will also start to wane, and same concept applies in inverted fashion for a bearish trend. When the bearish trend starts to wane, the plotting of these slope for these bearish currency will also start to rise gradually. So here we are looking at the comparison of all these currencies included USD, Euro, Great British Pound, Swiss franc, Japanese yen, and on the lower side we also have the New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, and Australian dollar as well. So all these currencies are being compared with one another to get us a sense of how the markets are shaping up. And if we see the slope of any one particular currency is diverging greatly in comparison to the all the other currencies, that simply means the particular currency is having the momentum which is quite strong. Whether it is bullish or bearish, it doesn't really matter. So we can then go for a trade in the currency of strongest trend. If you are looking for a bearish trade, if you are going for a short sale trade, then of course you would like to go for a trade in a currency which is most bearish. And if you are going for a buy trade, then you would like to buy a currency which is most bullish. So this particular indicator, which is quite a advanced formulation, gives you a good idea of how things are shaping up for one particular currency in respect of all the other currencies, because any one particular line which is drawn on this chart is drawn by comparing that particular currency strength against all the other currencies involved in this calculation. So here, for example, if we look at this purple line, it is diverging greatly from all the other lines representing other currencies. So that means this particular currency, let me check which particular currency is being represented by this purple line. So the purple line is representative of the Japanese yen, and what this chart is telling us at this point in time, the Japanese yen is the most bearish currency, and it is trending downward against all the other currencies. Suppose, for example, if you want to go short on any one particular currency, then it should be Japanese yen. And here there is one particular currency which is showing bullish tendency, which is being represented by this light blue color. Let me check which particular currency is that, and it is US dollar. So here we have the divergence of this sort, where one particular currency, the Japanese yen, is quite strongly bearish, and in comparison to that, we have the US dollar, which is looking solidly bullish. So if you want to go for a trade, then it is better to keep looking for opportunities in the USD JPY to go long, because here this indicator chart is telling us that the Japanese yen is the most bearish and the US dollar is most bullish. Now let's look at the charting of the USD JPY for 28th April 15 GMT. Let me change the chart and see what was happening on that particular day. All right, so we got to the 28th April and 15 GMT. So here you can easily notice that the price moves for the USD JPY were quite strong, and the USD JPY climbed up almost 250 pips from the lower point to the higher point in that trading session, and as a result of that, here we got this divergence where the Japanese yen was trending in a bearish manner, and not only bearish, it was strongly bearish, and that is quite evident from this chart. But as these levels were reached here, this chart is also telling us that the momentum waned and the relative strength of the trend started to wane. So subsequently, the trend didn't really change, but what happened is that the relative momentum, the relative strength of the trend is not as strong as it was in these moves. So suppose, for example, even after you come to know that the trend is bearish for the Japanese yen, you now have additional information that the trend is not as strong as what it was earlier. Then you would trade cautiously, and if we go to the 2nd May, then here this CSS line for the Japanese yen is now starting to approach zero, and in course of time it then rises above zero. That means the Japanese yen has turned the corner from bearish to bullish, and that has pushed the Japanese yen on the higher side, making it the most bullish currency in today's trading session. So the journey for the change started on 28th of April, where it was the most bearish. Then in course of time it became less and less bearish, and eventually it changed the corner to turn around and become most bullish. So we get to know when the trend is strong, when the trend is weak, and what side the trend is on, whether it is bullish or bearish. In addition to that, the relative strength of that trend is also judged by these indicators. So we have these indicator which is quite interesting to work with and equally informative. So if you work with this indicator, you will be in a good position to make a informed judgment of your trading strategies, looking at the relative strength and weaknesses of these currencies taken together. So I think that is a good idea for any trader, whether you are a new trader or you have been in market for long. This is one aspect I think which is likely to prove equally helpful for all the traders in the market. Now let's see which particular currency is being represented by this dark blue line. That is AUD. And what this chart is telling us that earlier in the day, AUD was the most bullish currency. Then it lost its place to the Japanese yen. But it is not really telling us that the trend has changed. It is only telling us that the momentum of the trend is now reducing. It is not telling us to go short. It is only telling us that the earlier strong momentum for the AUD is now waning and we should be trading cautiously. And if we look at the charting of the AUD USD, we can easily notice that after this sharp move caused after the release of monetary policy statement by the Reserve Bank of Australia, we saw this sharp move on the higher side, but the momentum was not sustained, and in course of time after this consolidation, the correction has deepened for the AUD USD. So when we saw the decline of these CSS chart for the AUD, we could have made our mind to not go long. Even if we are not going short at the current juncture, it is better to not even go long. Allow the AUD to stabilize, and when the momentum picks up and its slope starts to rise again, we will be in a better position to go for the initiation of a long trade in the AUD. So that is the CSS plotting of these currencies is telling us. So that's how these formation work. This is interesting indicator to work with, and I'm quite sure that you will be able to figure out newer and newer opportunities using these indicator for your trading purposes. Its formation is quite simple. It takes into consideration the ATR and the moving average types and compares the average price of a particular currency with average prices of all the other currencies. So on a trade weighted basket or a similar feature, you can say, gives us a relative measure of the strength and weaknesses of the trend for that particular currency, and then we can go for a trade. So we have these input parameters which can be varied. You can go for different types of moving averages. I would suggest that you should try it out what kind of combination is likely to work best for you, and depending on that you can then make an informed choice of which particular moving average to keep, and after that you will be in a better position to figure out the trades. You can also vary the moving average period and the MA factor 1 and 2. Along with that, the ATR can also be varied. So all these input parameters are variable, and depending on what kind of combination you use, you will have lot of fluctuations in the plotting of these CSS. Now coming to the output, we have all these currencies represented on the chart by these colored lines. So whenever you want to vary these plotting, you can go for different color combinations. You can vary it. Levels, there are these two levels which are going to tell you about the relative strength and the weaknesses. So this zero point 0.2 is a critical marker as the plotting of these lines rise above zero point 0.2 in a relative term. It is considered as representing the increasing strength of the bullish trend, and when the slope drops below minus zero point 0.2, that means the relative strength of the bearish trend is picking up, and this is a better time to go for the initiation of the new trades. So that's the purpose of adding these minus zero point 0.2 and zero point 0.2 levels on the chart. Coming to the advanced editing option, we calculate on new candle only. This particular combination is quite important. So if you go for a recalculate on new candle only, once the new candle is plotted, the calculation will be done and it will remain the same throughout that particular candle period, or else it will keep varying throughout the given candle period depending on the applied price for that particular currency. Highlight the time period zone. Whatever is your calculation period will be highlighted if you opt in for this option. Calculation can be customized further with these options of going for the different types of instruments. So you can use it from the chart, or you can even specify. The candle period can also be varied. You can use it from the chart as it is, or you can go for different types of candle period which can be selected. So regardless of what is your chart's candle period, this plotting of the CSS currency slope strength will be different and calculated as per these predefined candle period for these indicator. It is taking more time because the effort for this algorithm is going to increase as I have reduced this span of each candle period to only 15 minutes from hourly earlier, and as a result of that this plotting for the CSS is going to get lot more complex. Let me restore it back to use from the chart side. Ask and bid, show indicator on all the candle periods. So if you want this indicator to be available whenever you change the chart's candle period, you can have it, or else you can even specify on which particular candle period you want it. Now that I have opted for 5 minutes and hourly, only on those two time frames this indicator will be plotted, will be available. And suppose for example I go for 15 minutes or any other candle period, it won't show up on the chart simply because we have this option of show indicator on hourly and 5 minutes enabled for these indicator. Now I'm back on hourly, and so we have these CSS indicator back in the play. Base period is not going to make much of a change, so I think it is not going to be much important of which kind of base period you apply for this indicator. So that's all from my side for today's session of these currency slope strength indicator, where we saw the logic and its application with some of the representative examples. Of course, these examples are not exhaustive. You can always come up with new ways of working with this indicator, of taking advantage of these interesting indicator, which is going to be quite helpful for figuring out the relative strength and the weaknesses of these currencies included in these charting calculation. So thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous day ahead. See you next time around with an equally interesting indicator which will be explained, and you can then start working with it. See you next time around. Thank you all for joining in. Goodbye.